Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Thompson again with Thompson Management Consulting. We are here today with another look at, growing your business, being an entrepreneur in action, and doing the due diligence that it takes to grow your business successfully. Whether you're starting out as a pre-startup or if you're early in the small business life cycle. It's a new year and we're 19 days into the year already. And I know many small businesses are right now planning and preparing for the new year. They're looking at last year's performance. For those businesses that were fortunate enough not to close, looking at how you performed last year in the pandemic, looking at your revenues, looking at expenses, looking at accounts receivables, looking at your outlook on 2022 compared to previous year's performance, looking at 2021, 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, where you are now, and where you are projecting or anticipating to be by the close of 2022 going into 2023. This is a significant year, as I've pointed out in previous discussions, because we are looking at a third year of being in the midst of a pandemic. And although we are into the third year and we are now in a period of increased vaccinations, with millions of Americans receiving their 2 vaccinations and boosters, with all of the information that has been disseminated to the American people, and now we have home kits being sent to Americans, we're still vigilant and we're still cautious in this pandemic, especially for small businesses, especially our local small business operators. Our micro business enterprises, those who are, our mom and pop shops, our local small businesses, and we are the ones who are more cautious about the way that we go about planning and preparing our businesses, because unlike major companies, major corporations, global conglomerates that can withstand a tsunami like pandemic, like as with the COVID-19, we know our small business operators are more vulnerable to these natural disasters, and the pandemic has been a natural disaster, right? So the one thing that I want to touch on today that's imperative to our small businesses would be how we look at setting our goals for 2022. All right. Now, there were goals set in 2021 that, were determined to be goals for that year, for 2021, for last year, right? Based on where you see your organization going, where you see your small business going as far as the year in a pandemic, with reduced revenue and sales, with reduced customer activity, reduced orders, a crippling supply chain system due to employees, a shortage of employees, and not enough personnel in strategic positions to help move the supply chain forward, right? So coming into 2022 with all that in consideration, because many of our small businesses, and we've lost about 250,000 small businesses, about 1.5 million small businesses were impacted negatively by the COVID-19, right? So if you are a small business that has been fortunate to withstand the pandemic, you are in a decent position, right? Because you have not stopped operating. You have not ceased operations in your business. So you are moving forward into another year, a third year of operating with the pandemic still prevailing in the environment, right? So I want to talk about SMART goals, and I mentioned that in previous discussions. I want to talk about SMART goals because as we move into this third year of the pandemic, we're setting goals. We are identifying what it is we want to do with our business, right? Some of you are now operating with reduced staff. Some of you may have had to, depending upon your business model, probably had to liquidate part of your business because you couldn't afford to maintain the overhead as you've had in previous years. So you've minimized and downsized, and so you're operating in a more lean fashion, right, in your business. But I want to start. I want to discuss SMART goals, right? Because it's important that when you're setting goals for this year and moving on with operating your business, goals must be SMART, right? Now, SMART is an acronym that represents goals being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time specific, right? So what do you mean by SMART goals, right? What do you mean specific, right? Well, your goals must be specific and straightforward, all right? If you're setting goals for your business, you are setting goals based on the capacity that you have, right, to manage the operations of your business, right? They should be specific and straightforward and to the point, right? Goals should be measurable. Being able to measure and quantify if you're being successful in achieving the goals that you have set, right? Once you set the goals, once you set goals that are measurable, you ought to be able to go back and quantify and measure, right, based on the goals you've set to determine if you're meeting your goals, if you're meeting them at what percentage that you're meeting your goals. Have you met 100% of the goals? Are you still lacking in achieving the goals? If you're still falling behind, so you have to be able to measure to determine if your goals are effective enough to see you through the year successfully. Okay. Goals should be attainable. You should be able to attain your goals based on your model, based on the resources you have. You ought to set out on a path of attaining those goals. So they ought to be attainable. And you have to do an analysis of what you have in your business. Whether you are a small manufacturer, whether you are a software producer, you produce software for companies, whether you're a retail outlet, whether you are providing a delivery service or a messaging service, or you're a restaurant and bar. Looking at the resources you have to determine if you are going to attain those goals are very important. All right. Now, making sure goals are realistic, the R point, the R in SMART, making sure the goals are realistic, right? You've got to set realistic goals, right? If you're looking at achieving a certain operation or performing rather a certain operation, right? You have to make sure that you have the capacity to deliver. Now, there is going to be demand for a product or service, right? In order for you to supply the consumer to satisfy that demand, you have to have the bandwidth, right, to accommodate the request. And you have to have the capacity, right, in order to perform and to deliver that service, right? So you have to be realistic in how you set your goals, right? You're not going to, let's say, for instance, if you are a t-shirt if you're producing t-shirts and hats and other paraphernalia, right? And you are, let's say, for instance, you anticipate having, 2,000 orders a month, but you don't have the equipment, to provide 2,000 orders for that month, right? Or to reach or to achieve the 2,000 orders for that month. You don't have the equipment, right? How realistic is it that you are going to achieve that goal, right? Not much. Not much, right? If you are a restaurant and you are looking to serve a large number of customers for the month, right? You have a revenue goal you want to achieve, right? but you're still operating on a skeleton staff. How realistic would it be for you to achieve that goal, right? So now you've got to set out and start hiring people. You got to put out notices for servers wanted, cooks wanted, you know, whatever, right? The personnel that's needed for you to achieve that goal. So you have to be able to do the analysis to determine if the goal that you set for that business is realistic enough, right? And time specific. Goals should be time specific, right? Whether you're setting weekly goals, whether you're setting monthly goals, whether you're setting quarterly goals or goals for the year, right? You may have a goal that states, hey, we want to realize 20% more sales by the end of Q1 in comparison to Q1 the previous year, right? We're coming out of the pandemic. People are starting to gain confidence going back into shops, going back into restaurants, right? So you're looking at that. You're looking at consumer confidence, right? So you want to be able to gauge whether, right, this is a realistic goal that you can meet 20% more revenue by the end of Q1 in comparison to Q1 the previous year, which is 2021, right? Are you back to full dining, right? Do you still have, you know, the Grubhub and the Uber Eats and, you know, you have dine-in, you have takeout orders? Can these services, can these streams help you achieve that 20% more revenue by the end of Q1 2022 in comparison to 2021? So these things that we have to look at, right? So that's being time specific. You're setting a time quarterly, weekly, annually, right? By the end of 2022, we should have 50% more revenue than we did last year, right? Because last year we were almost in shutdown, right? But this year we have been fully operating, so we should gain at least 50% more revenue by the end of this year, right? So you're setting a time. You're setting a time by looking at an annual date, looking at quarterly dates, weekly, whatever, however it is that you set it. You have to be time specific or add a time to your schedule, to your SMART goals, right? So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time specific, right? And while you're measuring and in the process of measuring whether you are achieving your goals, also adding KPIs. You know, KPIs, key performance indicators, right? Look at your revenues and see if your revenues are more than what they were last year, right? If you're looking quarterly, right? Because you're measuring, right? Look at revenue, look at sales. Do you have more sales by Q1 or Q2 of this year in comparison to last year and in comparison to 2020, right? And if your sales have increased, right, then you can determine, okay, we are performing based on looking at our sales, right? How many customers have we acquired, right? Now, low-hanging fruit, retaining, customer retention is always a great thing. I call it low-hanging fruit, right? But how you acquire new customers is important. And we're going to get into a video, we're going to get into a discussion on customer service that deals with customer retention and customer acquisition, right? And retaining customers, acquiring customers and retaining customers. It's one thing to acquire customers. There's another thing to keep them, right? So they have to keep coming back, right? But there are different ways. Look at your KPIs. Look at setting quarterly metrics to determine quarterly, weekly, annual metrics to determine how you are performing as an organization, right? We want to make sure that our small businesses are operating successfully. We, you know, at Thompson Management Consulting, we work with a consortium of consultants, and we want to make sure that our small businesses, our micro enterprises, our sole proprietors, you know, the key economic drivers of our economy are performing and operating well. Right? So as you set your goals this year, you know, make sure, and this is another important thing, don't set 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 goals. I have seen reports with some outrageous numbers of goals. Or we want to set this goal and that goal and this goal and that goal. And 2 hours later, you're still, listing the goals that you're set. No, I always say, keep it real, keep it simple. Set about 3 to 5 key goals, right? And with each goal, you have to now determine the resources that are needed, right? What are needed in order for you to achieve those goals? The strategies and the strategic outline and the strategic analysis that's needed to ensure that you are putting the right steps in place, right? To enhance the process to ensure that you are achieving those goals, right? So this is all part of the process of setting SMART goals, because we want them to be specific, straightforward, and to the point, right? We want them to be measurable. You have to be able to quantify. You have to be able to put metrics in place, right? To measure, to determine now how you're looking at the progress of growing your enterprise for that year, right? You want to look at projections versus actuals. Everything that you project for your business, everything that you have estimated, then you begin to measure, right? And then you begin to measure and analyze what's actual, the actual activity, like actual revenues, actual expenses, actual net profits, right? Actual cash, right? We have to be able to look at that to determine now, are we performing up to our expectations, okay? So that's measurable, that's the M, right? Specific, measurable, attainable. Goals must be attainable. We must attain these goals, right? Goals must be realistic, straightforward to the point, and they must be achievable, right? They must be realistic based on the outlook for the year and time specific, right? And like I said, 3 to 5 goals, that's sufficient. Don't overdo it. You may have goals from the preceding year that you did not achieve, right? You can carry those goals over, right? Because now you have to work towards achieving them. Last year was a year of challenge for all small businesses, not just small businesses, but large businesses as well, as our global entities struggled and faced challenges, in the various industries and they're placed in, and also in the economy, right? 2020, of course, when the pandemic was introduced. So we have to look at those 2 previous years. We're looking at 2022 as the year that we somehow, hopefully, we finally come out of this pandemic, all right? So you may have goals that you've carried over from the preceding year. Add those goals to this year's goals, because those are goals that are still part of the scope and the focus of your business, right? And then make sure, and again, you track them, you track all your progress, you measure, you look at your schedule, because they must be time specific. And even if you don't achieve all your goals this year, you can carry them over the next year, but you really want to achieve those goals in the year that you have set them. All right. So we'll come back at another time, and we'll have some other discussions on customer retention, customer acquisition. We'll discuss branding and marketing and all of the opportunities to capitalize on digital branding and really getting the visibility of your business out there, right? This recording is specifically for discussing the goals of your business. 3 to 5 goals. Let's recap. 3 to 5 goals, right? Goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time specific, all right? Add in KPIs, key performance indicators, right? How you determine if you're performing well with your business. You're looking at if you're able to acquire new customers, if you're able to achieve those revenue goals, if you're looking to achieve those the net profit, right? The bottom line, okay? After all expenses have been paid, after all expenses have been taken care of, what's left over in your company as far as net profits, right? But you also have to measure cash flow. You have to measure cash, because the important thing is to have the working capital that's needed to reinvest back into your business to keep it growing, right? So we have to do ROI analysis, return on investment analysis. We have to look at profitability analysis, and we'll have videos specifically for that as we go forward, all right? So the 19th day of the month in January 19th, 2022, it's still a new year. Small businesses, micro enterprises, our solopreneurs, you're looking at setting your goals for the year. Definitely look at SMART goals, and definitely looking at keeping your goals to about a 3 to 5 goal minimum, right? So you have your goals, you have your strategies, you're strategizing how you're going to achieve those goals, what's needed, what resources are needed, how many people you need to add, as far as personnel. Do I need to update my website? Do I need to do more social media marketing and invest more in social media? But we're gonna do a separate video on all of that. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to share this video. Please don't forget to like this video. So hit that like button. Please leave a comment, because I always want to know what you're thinking when you watch these videos. And as you comment, it contributes to a nice conversation that we can have with other entrepreneurs, right? So leave the comment, hit the like button, share the video, right? And subscribe to our channel, TM Consulting LLC. This is Austin Thompson, dropping some more nuggets for you small business owners and for you entrepreneurs, because small businesses create jobs. You are the key driver in this economy, and we have to do all that we can to keep our small businesses growing successfully. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.